I feel like I need to do that right now. Anyway, so let's officially start this video off here.
We're doing a great
Welcome
job of staying on
everybody.
topic.
I hope that everybody here is able to see more than just our nostrils, and and are able to enjoy today's video. We're kind of like going lighter, but yet it's actually a serious topic. But Chris and I are going to be who we are and just kind of like, you know, keep it at least a little bit entertaining. But I'm happy to share that the topic we're talking about today, which is the perimenopausal journey for women, is finally a main, you know, a topic of like main society, of like social media, of health and wellness and all this kind of stuff. It's finally like mainstream and people are finally talking about it. And I'm sitting here going, this is centuries overdue. Like, this isn't even like decades overdue topic of conversation. It's centuries overdue. And really, I'll tell you, I think it was maybe 2 months ago, Oprah had done like this big special about it and had like a lot of, really well-known women get on, onto this special that she had run and talk about this topic and really some meaningful things. But I think one of my main takeaways was just like the fact that there's so many topics around women's health, period, pun intended. But also moreover is when it comes to birth control, when it has anything to do with our reproductive health specifically, there is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, and I think as any woman who has dealt with anything from having their period to premenstrual symptoms to reproductive health issues, all the way through, of course, to perimenopause and then going through menopause, will say that the general attitude of people, right? But in particular, of course, men and maybe even like our families that surround us is, hey, it's a natural thing. Just suck it up and deal with it. It just is what it is. Deal with it. And there's now in this mainstream conversation, there's a lot of talk around specifically the medical profession, right? The medical profession, even female doctors, even female gynecologists that have often had this attitude of it is just a natural thing. Everybody goes through it, suck it up and deal with it. Deal with whatever it is you're going through. And so for me, I'm happy to start this off because I think the only way for this to not just be a trend-based mainstream topic is if we keep talking about it. If it continues to be something that's important in society. And those things are some of the biggest impacts you're going to find when it comes to medical research being done, when it comes to, treatment and medications. These are things that will take this thing that we've just been told, just suck it up and deal with it. It's just a normal thing that women go through. It's a natural thing that women go through. And instead, we got to turn the table here a little bit. We've got to turn the tables to a place where it is like, no, we deserve to have research be done. We deserve to have treatments and things that are supporting us, even medicinally, if necessary, to ease this really, really life-changing experience. And really the only thing that as a woman that we have to compare it to is literally the process we go through in puberty, right? All the things we have to go through to lead up to that change. And then the next change is us coming out of this reproductive time of our life. And hormonally, physically, mentally, emotionally, how much all of these things really, really impair and affect us. And I think the more understanding that's there, the more knowledge that's had, the more maybe the people who live with us in our homes, our life partners, our children, our friends and our relatives and people surround us will maybe operate with some greater degree of empathy, grace, and understanding. And will cut us some slack when it comes to us not being at the top of our game every single day with the things that we do, with the things that we say, with how we operate, all of those things that we can, that understanding will hopefully start to achieve that. But it's going to come from us having some conversations about it, and really like some uncomfortable conversations, and using uncomfortable words and talking about vaginas and talking about cramping and bleeding and all the other symptoms, and just kind of using these words so freely. Let's get away from the discomfort of talking about it. I always say in my household, sex is a very typical conversation in our home. It is not uncomfortable. We talk about sex with our children at a pretty young age to make it just a comfortable thing. So it's not this like taboo thing to avoid and to not talk about. And I think it's important we start doing that with perimenopause as well. So just want to do that intro. I will kind of right off the bat, Kristen and I are in two very different stages of our perimenopause and menopausal journey. And so I'm going to kind of hand it over to Kristen and kind of have her share maybe where she's at, what are some of the things she's experiencing, what are some of the emotions you're even experiencing through this process and your journey so far.
Angela and I have something very funny going on. Like every relationship has like its like more dominant person and leader in the dynamic. And I would say I'm not gonna criticize myself because I'm a wonderful person, but Angela has always been the more emotionally mature one of the two of us. She's always been like a little bit of a step ahead. She's more of a leader than I am. And that's just the roles that we've taken on in our relationship. However, God has done something very strange and always made me go through these major life events before she does.
Yeah.
Like he just throws me in as like the guinea pig. Like I was the first one to lose a sibling. I was the first one to lose my parents. I was the first one to start going through perimenopause.
You're first one to get married. You had a child first.
Yeah, I don't know what's the point of that. One day I'll know, but I wish I knew ahead of time so I could make sense of it and try to do whatever purpose, fulfill whatever purpose it was supposed to. So I will say that about 2 years ago, I started having symptoms of hot flashes and irregular periods. Definitely still, I was always one to get my period every 28 days my entire life until I had Andy, at which time it went to like 23 days. But from there, since 2012 when I had Andy, it has been consistently 23 days, 21 to 23 days. 34.
Okay.
So ever since Andy, it has been every 23 days, but extremely consistent cycle my whole life. 2 years ago, I skipped a period. I started having odd, like 25 days or 18 days, like just a little bit weird. And I started having hot flashes. That's about all that was happening, but it was enough for me to talk to my gynecologist about it and say, could I be entering like perimenopause at 44 years old, 45 years old, whatever I was. And she said, yeah. So the first logical step was to start me on some supplements. So I started taking.
Yeah, did she test you at that point? Because I know, didn't you go through testing, hormone testing?
Not yet.
Okay.
So she had me start on DHEA and then some other vitamins that are essential to your health during this phase of life. B, D, E. I also started taking ashwagandha for cortisol and stress management. And I, separate from her recommendation, started taking turmeric too because it also helps with my like joints, my joint pain. So I've been doing that and pretty much on cruise control up until this past late winter, I would say. Things started to just, it's just like I was catapulted into the next level of perimenopause. I went 4 months without a period after going through several times this year where it was like maybe I'd skip a period. This winter late winter, early spring, went 4 months without a period. And just all of my symptoms just kicked into high gear, like hot all the time. They weren't just hot flashes. Irritable. That entire 4 months that I wasn't getting my period, I felt like I was PMSing the whole time. And usually like the day before I get my period, probably about 3 or 4 days before I get my period, I start to get like weird, I get really tired and I get weird food cravings that I don't usually have. Mostly like red meat and more greasy stuff than I usually would like. And and a little bit irritable. That is how I felt for 4 months straight, and it sucked. I mean, it was like I was ready to bite anybody's head off. Someone in my home recently said to me this morning, and if they watch it, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They said, "What is going on with you?" And I was like, "I think you know what's going on with me. I think we've discussed this. Like it's
even
not
just like what's so frustrating, and this is where I was like saying earlier about sensitivity, right? Like having that grace, the empathy, the active understanding and some and sensitivity to not even ask a question like that. You
Hmm.
know, it's again, I just think that, and I'm just going to speak as a mom and two other moms that have either gone through or are going through it or about to go through it, that we tend to be last on the priority list when it comes to the rest. Like, we're held up on this like unreasonable pedestal a lot of the times by our partners, by our children, by even like our parents. Like, there's this kind of unreasonable pedestal that I feel like we're held up to, and it's based on this idea that like, hey, yeah, like we created life inside of us, we gave birth, we went through a laboring process, we do all the things to make sure that like, hopefully most mothers are doing a pretty good job of like keeping their kids safe and alive and fed and meet all their basic life needs. And then it's somehow like, instead of that maybe just being like appreciated and acknowledge, it instead puts us up on this pedestal of like superhero status. You should just deal with everything. So
My
when
dad
we're off
literally
our
said to
game,
me, my dad literally said to me once, I was like, Dad, he was like, I was in the middle of 50 things. I had a baby, I had a puppy, I had a toddler, and like all this stuff going on, and I'm cooking dinner. And he was like, and everybody on Facebook knows how much I love my father. I adore him. But he goes, can you give me a glass of water? And I was like, Dad, do you not see like all that I'm in the middle of right now? And he goes,
mhm,
but you're Superwoman. He literally had himself convinced. And then I'm like,
yeah,
are they the smart ones? Like, are they tricking us?
yeah, like
I don't know.
it is such a backhanded compliment, right? Like, and instead of that, like seeing that and just like operating with a sense of appreciation and maybe like sensitivity, like how many times has any one of us moms been in a situation just like you just described, doing a million things at the same time, and then it's like, mom, or honey, or babe, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be doing at X o'clock? Where are we going tomorrow? What are
That's
we
your
doing?
pet peeve is
Because
the
we're
calendar.
the walking calendar, right? And I sit there and I go, why is there no like common sense and just awareness of like, I'm in the middle of five other things right now. What makes you think that I should stop everything I'm doing to go answer a question that you can answer for yourself?
Or literally last night in the kitchen, I'm like, do you guys know that there's four of you talking to me right now, demanding to
Mhm.
be in the conversation with me? Separate conversations, four
Yep.
of you. And then you
Yep.
wonder why I'm like going out of my mind. I
Yeah.
can't. I'm one person.
I mean, and that's just normal life. Like, we're not even talking about like being in this phase of life. That's just like normal everyday stuff, before we even start to talk about
That's a rabbit
perimenopause.
hole.
Yep. So talk a little bit more, Kristen, like in terms of you kind of explained your journey. You've gotten to this point where like you're in the muck of it at this point. Like you're getting in deep. You're gonna be, that you're gonna be getting in even deeper into some symptoms. What are some other symptoms, and kind of like earmarking that time frame now of like towards the end of last year and starting to get into more of the symptoms? What are some of the things that you've been feeling and experiencing?
Well, I think I said like I skipped, period for 4 months, feeling all the
Right.
PMS symptoms, hot all the time instead of just hot flashes, and very irritable, if I haven't said that, and also irritable too, and a little bit irritable. So what I did recently was I made a Facebook post, and I was just in the middle of insomnia. That's a big one. Literally not being able to sleep the full night through. So starting to have to take like power naps in the middle of the day just to be able to get through the evening,
Right.
without killing people.
Hey,
Um, and
listen, you haven't killed anybody yet.
how do you know? Do you know? So I put a post on Facebook one night at 3 a.m. when I was like, anybody else like feeling what I'm feeling? Like, here's the journey that I'm on. And the warriors came out, from the woodwork. All of my women, my lady friends,
Mhm.
came out and started sharing their experiences. And so many of them said that hormone replacement therapy has been life changing for them. So guess what? Kristen has an appointment with her gynecologist on July 16th because she is going to draw blood and see where I'm at with my levels and see if it makes sense to start doing some hormone replacement therapy. I'm very much looking forward to that because we shouldn't have to suffer. There's no need for it.
So I would definitely suggest, like, before you go in to see your gynecologist, that you do as much research as possible on it, because
Yeah.
um there's a couple things around this. And I mean, here I am, and here's maybe why God has decided that you're supposed to go through major life experiences before I do, is because I think I tend to be somebody who learns a lot, not from somebody else necessarily doing something the right way, but because they might do it the wrong way. And I'm like, I want to do this different. I don't want to like repeat, things, but I certainly also learn from people doing things the right way too. And so I had started having conversations in my last GYN appointment, and it was interesting. Like, it kind of became this weird therapy session with my male GYN, where he was like,
Who's in the same practice as mine, by the way. We go to
right.
the same, surprise, surprise, we have the same gynecologist.
And he was really sharing with, like, kind of his frustrations with very gimmicky things that are happening out there. Like, one of the things we talked about were these go to like South America somewhere, and you go to one of these like body scan clinics, and they do like the whole full body scan, and they run all these tests and blood tests on you. And he's like, all this is an opportunity for them to like send you medication that's not through a real doctor, like that, and like sell you things, like. And
That
he's like,
gets me so overwhelmed. The fact that there's so much out there like that,
yeah.
it's so overwhelming. I just go straight to my doctor.
And so for him, he's like, everybody's journey is different. Everybody goes through different things. He definitely, I felt, expressed a lot of sympathy and empathy for what women go through in this very difficult time. For God's sakes, this is his profession. He, I asked him about HRT. He said that is not the first step that I would take. He said his first step and recommendation would be absolutely to recommend putting women on birth control, because it's all about like trying to manage and level out the hormones that are in your body. And so that's always his first step
That
recommendation.
might be what
Um,
Knockbar says. We just
right,
haven't had that conversation yet.
right. And so, he said, but the bigger thing is just that, here it is, like this kind of terrible storm, right, of complication and confusion. You have women going through so much in their bodies, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and they want solutions, and they have a right to desire and ask for those solutions, and they want it immediately. And then you have all this social media they're getting hit with. They're getting hit with conversations. They're getting hit with like just like gimmicky stuff. And then how do you like filter through all of this and like have a logical conversation with somebody who might not be very logical in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
and um and then there, it kind of stirs up a lot of mistrust for the medical environment, because there are people and there are medical professionals who have not been sensitive and been understanding, and have had this attitude of like, just suck it up and deal with it. And so it's just, it does create and foster a lot of confusion. But what it really means is that we've got to attempt to be in what could potentially be a very highly emotional and erratic state, and advocate for ourselves and not sound completely insane. Like, how do you kind of like strike up that balance between all of those things, and still
It
like,
sounds exhausting. I need a nap.
yeah, exactly. So let's talk through some of this like crazy stuff that I've actually, as I mentioned, Kristen and I are in very different phases. I'm not anywhere as like into this journey of perimenopause as she is. I mean, at best, maybe I'm like a couple days early or late here and there. That's all that's really happened to me. I haven't really dealt with any hot flashes, I would describe it. I've always been like a hot-blooded person. Like, I've always been that way. So I don't even know if I could in the early stages distinguish between the two. Um, like, literally, if you ask anybody if they touch my hands or like my feet or my forehead, I always like feel warm to everybody all the time. Um, and so, but I've definitely noticed some like weird things that, until I started learning and hearing more of like other women's experiences, it never would have occurred to me could be potentially part of perimenopause. So some of those weird things that I've experienced is like the ear itching. What in God's green creation is that all about? Like the inner ear itching, not inner ear, but the I would say outer ear itching. I've always had dry
Wait,
skin, but
outer
it's
ear, like here? Like for me, it's been
like
definitely
ear,
in.
in inner ear actually means like even further in. So I'm kind of saying like it's the ear. Um,
Anyway, yes, and specifically when I'm laying in
so
bed at night, my ears start itching. It's the weirdest damn thing.
yeah, so itching ears. I've always had dry skin, but like my body in general feeling itchy all the time has like gotten a million times worse. Um, I would say my ability to stay asleep. I wouldn't say it's like occasionally I'll have problems like falling asleep, but it's kind of typical mom women stuff, right? Like as moms, we don't fall asleep in 19 seconds like my husband can, and like every other man I've ever heard about can just fall asleep instantly. Those are some of the symptoms that I've been experiencing. I would say like my period symptoms are like I feel like I'm a teenager again in terms of PMS and like during my period. Like it's literally like gotten that bad. My migraines. I used to get migraines, then they went away for a while. That's kind of the extent of it. But what are some other symptoms that you've been experiencing outside of what you've already shared?
Me?
Yeah.
I've shared it
Is
twice
there anybody
now.
new?
I've shared it twice
No,
now.
I
I don't
said
know why you keep
outside
asking
of
me.
what you already shared.
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay.
Is there
Um,
something that I've complained about that I'm forgetting to say?
I think that you shared like, your frustration, but I also think like emotionally, like just feeling angry all the time. Like
Oh,
it's
oh,
not even
oh.
just like a reaction.
I let me rephrase that for you. I want to murder people.
And also like all I think other stuff that you've experienced, it seems like it's heightened. So whether it's anxiety ends up getting heightened, you did mention like insomnia, like stuff happening with insomnia. Um, like what
I'm
about
very
like
frustrated. I'm very frustrated,
mhm,
easily irritated. Like,
yeah, irritable, and then sex drive, like everybody's talked about that. So if
what?
like
What is that? What is that?
yeah. All right. So this is the thing I will say across the board, regardless of what a woman was before she went into perimenopause, it's now like, let's say that that woman had a decent sex drive before she went into perimenopause. Now it's become a physical issue, right? Like there's all kinds of things that happen to a woman physically that will not only not make them in the mood, but like things physically with your body, like dryness that can go, this is not only something I don't feel like doing, this is something that can actually potentially be painful,
Which
and not have to like placate and coddle and like and worry about like how is it going to make your partner feel, the fact that you're not in the mood, like all of this is just like such a perfect storm. um which like I'm honestly surprised that like more divorces than would have happened aren't happening more during a woman going through perimenopause. Like, and it's and and just the tolerance. But I think I think we as women have earned the right to of what we put in physically with our bodies, what nature demands from us. Okay, let's be clear of a little bit more support and understanding, and for sure more investment medically in terms of in research and treatment than what we've been getting. We deserve it all around, all across the board. And if anybody disagrees with that, then I would question where they came from and how they got here, because we all got
I would
here the
really,
same freaking way.
I would really ask and encourage women of all ages to comment when they watch this if they're not watching it live, because I'd love to hear your experiences before, during, after. I've had people tell me that the sex drive never comes back, people that are post
Mm.
menopause already. And I've had people tell me that they never experienced the slowdown and the lack of libido. There's so many things that play into that as well, because there's like, like I take anxiety medication. Could that be a part of it
Mm.
too?
Right.
But I'm just so curious, like, let's talk about it. This more than any other video we've ever done, I'd love for women to chime in and comment, because we can
Yeah,
only support each other by
absolutely.
talking about it.
With that being said, perfect segue in. This is going to be a multi-part, might only be two parts. We got to see, but like what Kristen, because of where she's at in the conversation she's about to have, she's about to dig in a bit more into HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and find out more about that. So probably by the time we get to the part two, it's going to be after you have your appointment, right?
Yeah,
And kind of
probably in
see what the
August we'll do
recommendations are.
the part two.
Okay. And so the good news is with that you'll be able to share like what was the recommendation, what was the reaction. And again, you have a female GYN, whereas I have a male. So like I think that'll be interesting too to
I
kind
feel
of
like
see
your
how
male
it goes.
one was also more empathetic than my female one, interestingly enough.
Yeah. That's kind of a personality thing though too. So
Yeah.
so we'll kind of see how that goes, but it'll be good to see that. But in the meantime, to Kristen's point, feel free, please, let's get the conversations going. Let's have the comments come in, share your experiences. Whether it's, when this video does get edited and then posted up on my YouTube channel, which by the way, if you haven't done it yet, please go check out my YouTube channel, like and subscribe to that channel if you haven't already. But we're going to call it a wrap on this